The Oakwood Estates HOA Gala glittered like a crown jewel dropped in the middle of suburban Texas. All crystal chandeliers and 4 smiles under the kind of lighting that made even the worst plastic surgery look expensive. 200 homeowners packed the country club ballroom, sipping champagne that cost more than most monthly HOA fees while pretending they actually liked each other. This was Karen Langley's big night, the retirement party she'd been planning for months. The moment she would crown her golden boy Derek as the new HOA president and cement her legacy as the queen who kept the neighborhood pristine. I stood near the back in my simple black dress, the same one I'd worn to every board meeting where Karen had fined me for unapproved rose height while my mother lay dying upstairs. Carla Whitmore, 34. Invisible again. Karen took the stage like she owned the oxygen in the room. Blonde helmet hair, pearls tight enough to choke a lesser woman, and that smile, sweet as antifreeze. Friends, neighbors, my loyal Oakwood family, she began, voice dripping with the kind of fake warmth that could melt vinyl siding. 30 years ago, I took this HOA from chaos to perfection. No more ugly flags. No more weeds taller than 2 inches. No more, well, you know the rules I've protected you from. Scattered applause. Derek, her son, stood taller in his rented tux. Madison, his wife, glittering beside him like a trophy wife on clearance. Karen raised her glass. Tonight, I pass the torch to the only person who truly understands what Oakwood needs, my son, Derek Langley. He'll keep our standards exactly where they belong. The room erupted. Derek soaked it up like a sponge in a puddle of ego. Then Karen's eyes found me. And as for Carla Whitmore, well, she's always been more emotionally driven. Bless her heart. Spent 2 years away caring for her poor mother instead of contributing to the community. I suppose if the fines ever get too much, she can always apply at Walmart. They're always hiring. The laughter hit like a slap. Not everyone joined in, but enough did. Enough pearl-clutching Karens and golf shirt dads chuckled at the idea that the woman who'd wiped her mother's brow through chemo was now the punchline of the night. I stood frozen, face locked in the mask I perfected during those endless hospital runs. Don't react. Don't cry. Don't give her the satisfaction. That's when I spotted Mr. Langford at his corner table, the family lawyer my mother had trusted. Weathered face, zero expression, just a tiny nod that said hold on. The party swirled on, Derek accepting backslaps, Karen holding court like a dictator in heels, but I was the ghost again. Except ghosts sometimes carry receipts. And Mr. Langford looked like a man who knew exactly when to cash them in. I drove home that night with the laughter still ringing in my ears, each mile sharper than the last. 2 years ago, I'd been running my own marketing firm in Portland. 3 employees, clients begging for slots. Then the call came at 2:15 a.m., stage 3. 6 months maybe. I packed everything in a week. Sold the business for pennies. Broke the lease. Watched my relationship with James die at PDX Security. Because Marion Whitmore needed her daughter. Not that anyone in Oakwood saw it that way. Why not just hire a nurse? Derek had sneered during one of his rare drive-bys while Karen nodded beside him. Manicured nails tapping her phone. Because she's my mother, I'd answered, still stupid enough to believe blood meant something. Karen had barely looked up from her violation notices. Carla's between jobs anyway. Makes sense she handles a mess. Between jobs. As if I hadn't graduated summa cum laude from UT Austin. As if I hadn't built something real before cancer stole it. The next 2 years blurred into a nightmare of radiation at 7:30 a.m., green tea she could barely sip, and Karen's endless citations, roses too tall, mailbox decal, non-compliant, even a $250 fine for excessive emotional support visitors when hospice came. Derek visited exactly 4 times. First for a photo op for the HOA newsletter, President Langley's son supports local family. Second, Mom's birthday, 30 minutes before he took a conference call in the driveway. The last two were when a morphine kicked in and the lawyers started circling. Karen managed weekly check-ins, always exactly 60 minutes. Phone face up on the table, asking about Mom's condition like she was checking a parking ticket. But the nights were ours. When pain kept her awake, I read her favorite novels. When nausea won, I blended smoothies. When she cried, I held her and lied that she was still the strongest woman I knew. "You're saving me," she whispered one night, voice like tissue paper. "But who's saving you? I don't need saving." I lied. She squeezed my hand. "You will. And when you do, remember, I see you. Darling, I see everything they refuse to." 2 weeks later, she was gone. The funeral was another Oakwood production. Karen delivered a eulogy about community values. Derek spoke about inherited grace. No one mentioned the woman who taught me to fight quietly, who smuggled feminist books under Dad's nose, who whispered, "You're destined for more," every night. And certainly no one mentioned the daughter who'd learned to give injections, manage pain, and keep roses alive while the HOA tried to kill them. I simply didn't exist. Pulling into my garage after the gala, I finally understood Mom's words. They didn't see me then. They didn't see me now. But she had promised they would. The storage unit smelled like dust and broken promises. A year after Mom's death, I'd finally sorted her things. Karen had wanted everything trashed. Dwelling on the past isn't neighborly. I moved it all here instead. Box after box of photos. Letters. Her wedding china. My hand brushed something solid behind the albums. A mahogany box with her initials carved in elegant script. Inside, folders so neat they could only be Mom's. The first held financial statements going back 20 years. Investment accounts in her maiden name, Marion Eleanor Fitzgerald. The second folder made my knees buckle. Share certificates, dozens, for the Whitmore Oaks Homeowners Association Corporation. Mom had always said she helped start the community. Here was proof she'd funded it. Bought shares since 1994. Reinvested every dividend. The math was brutal. She owned 52%. The third folder held incorporation papers. Founding partners, Karen Langley 48%. Marion Fitzgerald 52%. My mother hadn't just planted the roses. She owned the entire damn garden. At the bottom, a sealed envelope, to be opened only when the moment is right. "You'll know. Trust Mr. Langford." I sat in the dark until the motion lights died, then clicked on again when I moved. Every time Karen had preached community standards, every fine she'd slapped on me while Mom suffered, every smug speech about her neighborhood, it was all built on a lie. I called Mr. Langford at dawn. His secretary connected me instantly, as if she'd been waiting. "Miss Whitmore, I wondered when you'd find them." We met downtown in his leather-scented office. "Your mother was brilliant," he said, pouring coffee. "She let Karen be the face while she stayed the foundation. She knew Karen's nature, knew Derek's, knew yours." He slid the folder across. "Her will supersedes everything. She leaves her entire estate, including all shares and voting rights, to you, Carla and Whitmore. One condition, reveal it at maximum impact. When those who refuse to see you have no choice but to look." "The Gala," I whispered. Mr. Langford smiled like a chess master. "Your mother predicted Karen's ego would demand a grand exit. This is her checkmate." The week that followed was a blur of legal briefings and sleepless nights. Mr. Langford and I met daily. She retained 3 separate firms, video depositions, medical proof of sound mind, he explained. "The Gala is in 6 days. I've briefed venue security, former troopers. No one cuts my mic." I stood in Mom's rose garden that night, the one Karen had tried to fine into oblivion, and picture the moment. Derek on stage, Karen crowing. Then the hammer falling. Karen called Thursday. Family. Board. Meeting at 4. Don't be late. Carla. The meeting was Karen, Derek, Madison, and Karen's new boy toy, all in the president's office. The transition must be seamless, Karen declared. Derek addresses the neighborhood Monday as president. I remain chair emeritus. They laughed when I stayed quiet. Try not to embarrass us at the gala, Karen sneered. And maybe skip the Walmart jokes. They're getting tacky. More laughter. That night, Mr. Langford texted, everything positioned. Your mother wanted an audience for their downfall. Are you ready? I thought of every fine, every dismissal, every night Mom cried while Karen slept fine. I'm ready. The morning of the gala, I woke at 5:30. Nerves humming. I chose Mom's favorite Navy power suit. Armor. She called it. Hair. Nails. Each step deliberate. The stylist gushed. The Langleys are Oakwood royalty. You must be so proud. I smiled. Tonight will be memorable. At 6 I stood before Mom's mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the ghost who'd endured 2 years of invisible labor. This was someone forged in chemo rooms and citation letters. Someone who knew being underestimated was the ultimate weapon. Derek's car honked. I touched the sealed envelope still on my dresser. Not yet. Time for the ghost to become flesh. The ballroom glittered again, but tonight the air crackled. Derek did a double take at my suit. Carla, you look different. Same person, I said smoothly. Better lighting. Madison's smile faltered. Is that your mother's? She had excellent taste. Uncertainty flickered across her face. Cocktail hour passed in small talk while I noted Mr. Langford at his table. Briefcase ready. Security discreet. Journalists from the local paper hovered. Karen had invited them to chronicle her triumph. Dinner dragged. I sat invisible between Aunt Patricia and Karen's broker. Perfect. Let them forget me. Dessert cleared. Karen took the stage. Her speech was pure self-worship. 30 years of sacrifice, name-dropping city council members, bragging about every rule she'd enforced. But success means nothing without succession, she crowed. Tonight, I passed the torch to my son, Derek Langley. Thunderous applause. Derek bounded up, hugged her theatrically. His speech thanked Karen for mentorship, never once mentioning the woman who actually built the place. To the next 30 years, the room echoed. That's when Mr. Langford rose. He moved like justice in slow motion, briefcase in hand. The event coordinator started forward, but security blocked her with a quiet word. Excuse me, he said into the live mic. A matter of legal urgency. Karen's face went from triumphant to furious in a heartbeat. Langford, what the hell? Mrs. Langley, please. This concerns the ownership structure of the Whitmore Oaks HOA Corporation. Information every stakeholder and the media needs to hear. Silence crashed over 200 people. Cameras swiveled. Mr. Langford opened his briefcase. As counsel to the late Marion Eleanor Fitzgerald Whitmore, I must inform you of a material change. 2 years ago, she executed a last will and testament. He read it aloud, voice calm as a surgeon's scalpel. I bequeath my entire estate, including all shares, voting rights, and controlling interest in the Whitmore Oaks HOA Corporation, to my daughter Carla and Whitmore. Gasps. A champagne flute shattered. Karen lunged for the mic, but security stepped in. Impossible, she shrieked. Marion didn't own 52%. Mr. Langford held up the original 1994 documents for the cameras. Authenticated, notarized, irrefutable. Mrs. Whitmore was the majority shareholder, a fact she chose to keep private. The journalists scribbled like their careers depended on it. Derek's face drained white. She manipulated a dying woman. Mr. Langford's voice could have frozen hell. The will was executed 2 years before diagnosis. Video depositions. 3 medical evaluations, all airtight. The daughter who sacrificed everything inherits. The son who visited 4 times does not. That 4 times landed like a slap. Derek staggered. I stood slowly. Every eye found me, the ghost suddenly solid. I walked to the stage in Mom's suit. Light catching the fabric like a promise kept. The room held its breath. I haven't been chosen for anything in this neighborhood, I said, voice steady. But my mother saw me. Then I turned and walked out, leaving chaos shouting, accusations. Camera clicks like applause in my wake. Checkmate. My phone exploded before I reached the car. Unknown numbers. Derek. Karen. I turned it off and drove home in blessed silence. The house was dark. I poured Mom's favorite Bordeaux, sat in her rose garden, and breathed in the scent she'd never smell again. At 11:45, Mr. Langford texted from his burner. Aftermath managed. Karen tried to confiscate documents. Security stopped her. Board members already demanding emergency meeting. Stand by. Let them rage. Tonight was for Mom and me. The next morning the storm hit. 57 missed calls. Doorbell ringing like an alarm. Through the peephole, I saw 3 news vans and a pack of reporters. Miss Whitmore, comment on last night's revelations. Plans for the HOA. I made coffee and watched them from the kitchen window like vultures circling a carcass that refused to die. Mr. Langford's official line rang. Legal assault begun. Karen retained a shark firm. Undue influence. Incapacity. Forgery. The usual garbage. They'll lose. Your mother overplanned. Video depositions time-stamped. Medical records ironclad. He paused. They're also launching a PR war. Derek went on morning news, claiming you manipulated a dying woman. I pulled up the stream. Derek, still in last night's tux, but rumpled, played victim perfectly. My sister took advantage while I kept the neighborhood running. She was manipulating our mother. The anchor nodded sympathetically. What about reports you visited your mother only 4 times? Derek's mask slipped. Taken out of context. I had responsibilities, HOA business. I smiled grimly. Let him dig. By noon, the blogs exploded. HOA in chaos. Daughter inherits controlling shares in shocking will. Comment sections tore Derek apart. For visits in 2 years? That's not a son. That's a cameo. Karen arrived at 3 p.m., using her master key before I could stop her. She looked 10 years older overnight. We need to talk. No, we don't. I stayed seated at Mom's antique desk reviewing shareholder docs. Our lawyers can talk. Carla, be reasonable. You know nothing about running an HO. I ran my own firm successfully before I gave it up to care for the woman whose shares I now own. Her face flushed. Those shares were meant to be mine. Your mother was just holding them for 30 years while funding the entire development with her family money while you took all the credit. I met her glare. Yes, I've seen the documents. The initial capital came from her trust fund, the Fitzgerald fortune that built Oakwood. Separate property under Texas law. You knew that when you signed the agreements. Karen actually stepped back. For the first time in her life, the queen of citations had nothing to say. The board won't accept this, she finally spat. With what authority? I own 52%. I am the board. I stood. Derek can keep his title for now, if he behaves. You can keep chair emeritus, if you behave. But make no mistake, Oakwood is under new management. You ungrateful. Get out. My voice stayed calm. Use that key again, and I'll have you arrested for trespassing. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the roses outside. That evening, Mr. Langford updated me. The board had called an emergency session. 2 major homeowners already offered to sell me their votes. Your mother would be proud, he said. Is it? I asked, suddenly exhausted. All this fighting. She hoped they'd show grace. But she planned for who they really were. That night, I broke the wax seal on Mom's letter. Her handwriting hit like a hug. My dearest Carla, if you're reading this, they've shown you who they are, and you've shown them who you've always been. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from their blindness while I lived, but I could ensure you'd never be invisible again. The shares are yours, but the real inheritance is freedom. Be better than they were. Be the leader I always saw. Water the roses, they're survivors like us. All my love, Mother. Tears fell freely. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and battles. But tonight I sat in Marion Whitmore's garden, visible at last, and let her daughter grieve. The counterattacks came in waves, each more desperate and ridiculous than the last. First, character assassination. Derek hired a PR firm that planted stories about my mental instability after Mom's death. Anonymous sources claimed I talked to the roses, obsessed with her memory. They even ran a photo of me crying at her grave with the headline, "Unfit to Lead." Whitmore, heiress, shows signs of breakdown. Mr. Langford assembled crisis experts who countered with facts. My UT Austin transcript summa cum laude. Testimonials from Portland clients. Hospice nurses describing my strength. One nurse told the Austin Chronicle, "She never broke. Not once. If that's instability, we should all be so unstable." Next came the legal barrage. Karen's lawyers filed 4 challenges in 2 weeks. Undue influence, incapacity, forgery, even a laughable claim that Mom verbally promised the shares to Derek at birth. Judge Harrison, a no-nonsense woman who'd known Mom through charity work, dismissed each with growing irritation. At the final hearing, she leaned forward. "Counselors, one more frivolous motion, and I'm considering sanctions. Mrs. Whitmore's will is valid, comprehensive, and bulletproof. Accept it and move on." But the most vicious strike came from inside the HOA itself. Derek, still clinging to the president title, called an emergency all-hands meeting at 9 a.m. Monday before I could arrive. According to the recording an ally sent me, he painted doom. Without stable leadership, Oakwood will crumble. Clients, residents, are nervous. If my sister proceeds with this hostile takeover, you'll all face chaos by Christmas. Fear rippled. He'd counted on terror to turn everyone against me. He hadn't counted on Margaret Santos. Margaret had been Mom's executive assistant for 15 years, a quiet 5 feet 2 inches woman most people overlooked, including Derek, who once called her the furniture within earshot. She stood up in that meeting and spoke truth to power. "Mr. Langley, your mother built half this community while you were still in diapers. She reviewed every contract, approved every hire, managed crises without ever putting her name on a press release." She looked around the room. "If her daughter has half her sense, and I believe she has more, we're in good hands." The room erupted. Longtime residents started sharing stories of Mom's quiet leadership, the way she'd smoothed over Karen's ego and Derek's incompetence. The narrative Derek crafted crumbled in real time. By the time I arrived at 10:30, summoned by Margaret's discreet text, the tide had turned. I walked into the conference room not as an interloper, but as Marion Whitmore's daughter. No applause, but no flight either. They waited, watching. I didn't give a speech. I asked questions. What challenges were they facing? What opportunities had been blocked? What ideas had they buried because Karen said no? For 3 hours I listened, really listened, the way Mom taught me. Taking notes, remembering names. By the end, the atmosphere had shifted. These people didn't know me yet, but they recognized something. Mom's patience. Mom's quiet power. Maybe it was the way I tilted my head when concentrating. Or maybe it was simply that I saw them as neighbors, not rule breakers. The death blow to Karen and Derek's resistance came from the residents themselves. 3 major homeowners who Derek claimed were nervous reached out directly. The president of the Oakwood Business Alliance was blunt. "We stayed compliant because of your mother. Not Karen. She understood needs, anticipated problems. If you're half the leader she was, we're doubling our support. Similar calls poured in. It turned out Mom had been the secret weapon in community relations all along, the one who fixed Karen's overreach and Derek's blunders. The media narrative flipped. The hidden force behind Oakwood Estates ran in the local paper. Like mother, like daughter, asked the business blog, comparing my Portland success to Mom's early vision. Derek made one last desperate play. He showed up at my house Friday evening, alone, looking hollowed out. Can we talk? No lawyers. Curiosity won. We sat in Mom's living room. Silence heavy. I need this, he said finally. It's all I have. Whose fault is that? He flinched. I know how I treated you. And Mom. But I'm your well. We grew up together. I studied him. This stranger who shared geography but never struggled. Do you remember what you said when I asked you to visit her more while she was dying? He looked away. You said, that's what we're paying you for, like caring for her was hired help. Beneath you. I stood. Derek, you made your choice every day for 2 years. You chose the title over family. Now you want me to choose family over the community. You taught me well. Business is business. He left without another word. Monday, his resignation letter was on my desk. The board meeting that afternoon was a formality. With 52% and growing support, my control was absolute. If I didn't gloat, Mom wouldn't have wanted that. Instead, I proposed a new vision, transparency, merit-based decisions, reasonable rules instead of Karen's tyranny, a focus on neighbors instead of citations. The vote was unanimous. Even Karen's old allies could read the writing on the roses. As the meeting ended, I caught my reflection in the glass wall. For a moment, I saw her, Marion Fitzgerald Whitmore, the woman who built an empire in silence and left it to the daughter who'd been invisible. Not anymore. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of what was once Karen's kingdom, watching workers install the new sign. Marion Oaks, HOA, the ampersand was elegant, understated, like Mom herself. The transformation hadn't been painless. Some old guard board members resigned in protest. Others adapted, shocked that competence mattered more than connections. We promoted from within, elevating voices silenced for years. Margaret Santos became vice president, a role she'd quietly performed for decades. Financials spoke louder. 2/4 of record satisfaction. 3 new community projects. A survey showing neighbor approval up 40%. Turns out people thrive when they're seen instead of fined. Revolutionary. Karen had retreated to her McMansion. Chair Emeritus title intact, but meaningless. She'd aged visibly. The loss of power eating her like acid. Her boy toy left the moment lawsuits failed. Even he recognized a sinking ship. Derek surprised me. After a month of silence, he sent a simple email. I'm starting therapy. Maybe one day we can talk. Really talk. I am sorry. I didn't reply. Some bridges stay burned. But I hoped he meant it for his own sake. The real victory came on a quiet Tuesday. I was reviewing new community guidelines in what had been Karen's office, now mine, decorated with Mom's paintings, when Margaret knocked. Someone here to see you. It was Mrs. Patterson, the hospice nurse for Mom's final weeks. She carried a small wrapped package. Your mother gave this to me, she explained. Said to deliver it when you claimed your throne. I think you have. Inside was Mom's worn leather journal. Pages of careful analysis. Strategic notes. Personal reflections. One entry dated just after my birth stopped me cold. Karen insists on traditional roles. She'll be the face. I'll be the foundation. I'll keep buying shares, guiding from shadows. One day my daughter will need more than pretty words. She'll need power, the kind they can't dismiss. The kind that makes you visible whether they want to see you or not. 34 years. She'd been planning for 34 years. The final entry, written a week before diagnosis. The pieces are in place. Carla will handle the rest. She doesn't know her strength yet. They've convinced her she's weak. But she has my patience and Karen's ambition, tempered with genuine kindness. The community will finally be in the right hands. I closed the journal, tears blurring everything. Even from beyond, Mom was still teaching me, still protecting me, still seeing me. That evening I called a neighborhood-wide meeting under the new sign. I spoke about vision, values, honoring the past while building better. Mostly I spoke about Mom, the real Marion Whitmore, not the shadow Karen had allowed. She built this place as much as anyone, I concluded. But she built it for all of us, not just the privileged few. Marion Oaks isn't just a name change. It's a promise that every voice matters. Every contribution counts. That leadership isn't about being chosen. It's about choosing to serve. The applause was genuine this time. As neighbors dispersed, chatting about new possibilities, I remained under the sign, looking up at Mom's name finally displayed where it belonged. Mr. Langford appeared beside me. She'd be proud. I know. He adjusted his glasses. She told me once revenge, served cold, is for amateurs. Revenge, served with grace, that's for professionals. I smiled, thinking of Karen's exile, Derek's resignation, the community reborn in Mom's image. Then I guess we're professionals indeed. He patted my shoulder. She also said the best revenge isn't destroying those who wronged you. It's succeeding so brilliantly they have to watch your triumph from the sidelines, knowing they threw away their chance to stand beside you. Looking around at the neighborhood thriving, at neighbors who now saw me as the leader Mom always knew I could be, I understood. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was revelation. I was exactly where Mom had always intended, in the light, impossible to ignore, building something better from the ashes of their arrogance. Thank you, I whispered to the evening breeze, to her memory, to the woman who loved me enough to ensure I'd never be invisible again. Somewhere in the roses, I swear, I heard her voice. You were always visible to me, darling. Now make sure they never forget it. I wouldn't. Marion Oaks would make sure of that.